Oh man, it's taking. Oh, there it is. This Hangout on Air is live. Thank you, and welcome to OreAni, the end of summer 2017, part 2. As I somewhat vaguely promised, luckily enough, we have a few people with us. We got Ace again. Hello, Ace. We have Albert.
Hello.
Nyampasu to you. And we have, as always, Nick.
Hi there.
I wonder if Ace got DC'd. He looks like he's frozen. Well, he can join up later on. So, welcome everyone. Welcome back. We're gonna try to cover some of those titles. Some of them are still great shows to watch, even though it wasn't in the first part. And of course, we're going to get to some titles that you might want to skip. Luckily enough, we have a few people here that watch those shows for us, so they can tell us not to spend our time on it. So let's go ahead and start with, what is it, Knights and Magic? I know we semi-talked about it last week. We didn't really get into it. So let's see what...
in the review.
Yeah, we did. We did talk about Knights of Magic because I remember because I was reading the light novel as well, and I made a few talks about it.
I thought so. Yeah, I watched Knights of Magic, and I also watched In Another World with my smartphone. Which at the preview, 3 episodes in, I drop it. It's not a very good show. And for some reason, because it was on Crunchyroll, I was watching DRV, but it was available, and I would just put it on the background and just kept watching it for some reason. In conclusion, yeah, it's not a good show, and there's a lot of problems with it. Problem I had is with the protagonist. Who goes by L, and he is supposed to be. It's another case of man dies and is reincarnated, sent to another world, and he awakens in a body. Although that angle is not really well, so you're never really sure how much of his previous life as a super programmer he remembers, but he does new ideas because he was a robot Gunpla otaku in his previous life, right? So he wants to create and ride in robot. Okay, so that's all fine, but is he's so single-minded about that, but he pays no price. Case of a OP protagonist who.
Can you, Albert, if you have a second? You're breaking up kind of pretty bad.
Okay.
Is there any way you can do the adjust the bandwidth on top and bring it down so that maybe it'll bring your audio better? I think on the Hangouts up the top they have that 3-bar.
Yeah, it's already on low. I can go to audio only.
I think
while talking. So hopefully this will clear it up a bit.
Yeah, I don't hear any breaks anymore, at least.
Okay, I'm on audio only. So the problem I have is this is another case of a totally OP character, no price for any accomplishments in the world, right? And in fact, this is probably worse than in Another World with my smartphone, because the protagonist is so focused on creating, the perfect robot, discovering new technologies and new applications to create, this robot that doesn't see the world around him in a human way. He sees everything as like a tool. And I'm not saying he's a sociopath, but types where he's completely oblivious to, everyone else's concerns or humanity, and he is just focused and just brushes it off as, oh, he's just so crazy about building these robots. But yeah, it doesn't come off very good. And the story, there's also a huge amount, months of time jumps. I don't know how it read in the novel, but it feels really me. The pacing doesn't seem right, and these events happen. There are consequences to everyone else. Yet, everything is resolved because L is there. Not recommend this unless you're into that to, really childish wish fulfillment fantasies. It's down to. My review.
So would you say at least like the battle scenes or anything was mentionable, or is it?
Crickets?
Can you hear?
He's talking.
You can't hear me?
No,
Hello?
you trailed off for there, me too, now, just now, but I heard you the first time. Tank, I mean.
So no, even the battle scenes, it's all CG. The battles between the Night Runners, the robots of this world, are all CG, and I think, within like 2 years, this will look dated, and that there's a certain amount of problem with that. And the towards the end, they introduce the technology keeps advancing, but then all of a sudden, from robot movements, they become like kung fu movements, right? And so, like the enemy super sword guy, the sword, the guy that wanted all those different swords on his machine, they don't end up moving like robots anymore. So it goes from, you know, uh, I guess giant robots to super Gundams in the span of a couple of years. I don't even like that battle sequence.
What about you, Nick? Yeah.
And everything is kind of to each their own. And this series reminded me like a lot about what a lot about was like fun with a show that was like Gundam Build Fighter, which was kind of like another premisey aimed at the youth kind of mech anime things. Um, I actually quite enjoyed this one a lot, and I agree with Albert. Like, I think the whole thing about Ernesti, though, is when they try to make him so focused on his hobby, his robots, like in a single-minded pursuit of it. I think they were kind of going for like a comedic era angle instead of like a down to earth, this really happened kind of a show, because I think they're just trying to show off the positiveness of his personality more so than how practical of a person he is. Um, and I mean, they did kind of address that like in the series, because um, when Ernesti came, he realized how similar to programming the magic of this world was. Like, the spells themselves function a lot like a scripting language. And he used his extensive knowledge that is like the only thing he seemed to took from his previous life to make improvements to the robot's control scheme, where combat used to be a magic sphere, a magic rod, and shoot fireball forward. You're now getting a lot more dynamic movement from the mechs of the series, which again is that positive angle of we don't want blocky front mission styled mechs. We kind of want this Gundam-esque animated mech, whatever silhouette knight. And one of the things that I rather enjoyed in this series that anime doesn't usually focus on is, Ernesty got ahead as a young kid because he made his own magic spells. He got in with his school's maintenance department and turned them into like a manufacturing department, and he was having them build equipment for him, which caught the kingdom's attention, and he quickly became a silhouette knight engineer. And he was just basically having fun with life. And as it just so happened, there was another continent that also developed new technology that would have been like early era Germany. Their technology gave them such a war advantage that they might have gone for world control, but Ernesty just happened to be in that area, and you had this war that kind of broke out between the two factions. And a lot of like strategy anime kind of depicts generals using tactics to go against each other. And one of the things that I had fun with is around episode 6 till the end, it kind of became my enemy has developed this new technology. What tactics or new technology can I make to get the upper hand again? And it became this war of engineers and making niche improvements to specifically combat the enemy's new strategic power. And I liked that angle coming from this anime, because you don't really see that a lot in stuff like Gundam. Typically, the Gundam has all the pilot skill, and the Gundam has to fight the enemy and be the strategic ace, but you don't really see the background characters having access to new technology and using the tactics. It just painted a new angle that I don't get from anime often, and I really loved it. Especially, I think the music helped me a lot here. It's one of the openings that I enjoyed because, again, it matched the mood of the series. It was this really positive opening. I just like the beat. The vocal artist, it's not her voice that I like, but it was a fun song. And the weird thing is, specifically about this opening that I've also never seen done before, is normally as openings go on throughout a series, sometimes they introduce things that would have been spoilers at first, like they kind of unlock the opening now that we can reveal this part of the story. This opening never did that, but as it got near its end, it actually implemented sound effects. So sometimes you have sound effects in the opening animation, and I've seen some shows employ it, but this one kind of started halfway through. And then when I started thinking, I'm like, am I crazy or have I just not noticed that before? Because I don't remember those sound effects. They picked like a gap in the song. At one point, the artist, they just play an instrumental interlude, and there's a moment like about a second and a half long where the vocals cut out, and that's part of the song. It's not done for the anime. And they decide to play a second and a half worth of audio clips from what's to come in the future of the episode, like full clip included. They're not just playing audio, they just put in the clip of a character making like a dramatic line and to be played later in the episode. And I'm like, I've never seen them do that. Like start off with an opening, then introduce sound effects, and then start playing clips like before this thing's completion. So not that I was impressed with that, I just noted it as an oddity. But I really like the energy of the show, and I do think it's aimed at a younger demographic, and I think they would pick it up and enjoy it, much like if you watched Gundam Build Fighter and just had an interest in its upbeat, younger perspective. I'm okay with those shows. I like them too. I still, even if it's predictable to the length of, the character having plot armor or knowing how a battle's going to unfold, or just having complete faith in the character's ability to overcome the scenario, it's something that I enjoy out of anime every once in a while.
So the thing that I found, like, I didn't watch this show. It seemed interesting at first, but I just something about it wasn't getting to me, and I think it had to do with when I started reading the light novel to compare, and was how different they showed the protagonist. Now, kind of like how Albert was saying that they didn't really give him too many consequences and stuff, and I didn't really see any of that as well. But the light novel showed a lot more of him connecting with people, like those twins and
Hmm.
that family, and showing a strong connection with them, showing how they got so hooked up, why they're so kind of like loyal to each other and everything.
Hmm.
But they skipped a lot of that in the anime, I thought,
Yeah,
beginning.
probably.
So it seems he's so standoffish or in the anime because they skipped all that bonding between him and some other people. Maybe they did that in the future as well. So maybe that's why he seems like he doesn't care about a lot of people. But to me, in the book, it seemed like he really did care a lot, and he did a lot of things for them whenever they were in trouble to help them out as much as he could.
I gotcha. And yeah, that's some perspective I have because I haven't read the original material, but I do kind of wonder why they would change the character so much between the two mediums. But I mean, it is what it is.
Maybe they were just so focused on the silhouette nights and battles that were going to be coming.
Like I haven't looked. I don't normally pay attention to the scenario writer staff, nor the director, nor a lot of that stuff. A lot of times I just rely on people like Sean and Albert to relay insight on that. I just try to watch, the raw story and provide an interpretation made, from just reviewing the media instead of like understanding what to expect from certain individuals in the industry. But yeah, it's interesting. I think I would have really enjoyed reading the light novel or seeing if they would animate it a little more true to the character
For,
in that medium.
from what I've heard, they have a manga, so you might be a little quicker on the manga if you read that, because I think it follows the light novel a little more closer than the animated. So since he's kind of brought it up already, let's go ahead and just move over to the smartphone. Isekai wa smartphone to tomoni, or in another world with my smartphone.
Yeah. So did you guys watch this too?
I did.
I actually did finish it because I guess I was bored. There's not much else to say about it. I mean, I
Yeah,
hate the main character, but
it was pretty bad. It was pretty bad. So again, this is a case of you can tell just from looking at that tab on my screen. Yeah, it's harem. It's a guy about, he accidentally dies. Wasn't supposed to die, but he died, and so God, whether it's capital G or small G, decides to give him another chance to be in a different world, right?
wasn't it
As
because God killed him though?
compensation, gets a phone that works in that other world with magic, so he can do everything that we can, searching, map functions, finding out details about the world, location tracking, all that on his smartphone using magic, because God somehow feels even worse. He gets, superior physical abilities, everything, if his normal abilities was a 5, everything is turned up to 11 for him. He has all the magics available to him. And he discovers this within like the first 2 3 episodes, basically a superior being in every sense, right? And yet again, he goes through events, and like no challenge. There's no challenge. There's no consequences. There's no, there's no risks for him because he's so overpowered. And I pretty much hated it until the very end. And I did watch the entirety of it. Yes, at the very end, he is with four girls. Just only part of it because I read the wiki, and he will eventually end up with 9 brides. So
They actually made
yeah,
that comment last episode too.
yes, but yeah, I cannot recommend this full show. It is trope filled. The protagonist, I just wanted to punch him in the face many times. Um, you can't find like any fault with him in the world. Nobody can find fault with him because he's like a perfect gentleman and all that. So, God, it was boring. It was really boring. And the only reason I watched it was because it was on Crunchyroll and I could just have it up on screen while I was doing something. Usually, when I watch anime, I like to sit down and actually read it. I don't play on my smartphone or tablet. I'm not doing my homework or whatever. I just like to watch the show. But this one was was so forgettable. I could just watch it. Oh no, his name was Toya. So yeah, it's a horrible show.
Okay, okay. Um, I just want to make a quick comment. Or maybe it won't be that quick actually because of how annoying this is. So there's a web novel, and then there's a light novel. The light novel version I haven't read, and I think
Uh,
you can actually find it on JNovel. There's a website online for that's releasing the or has a license for the light novels. But the web novel, oh my God, he's even more annoying. He, he's even
really?
more. Yes.
Is that even possible?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how to explain it. He's just so aggravating, and it just pisses me off so much. And he does. She starts creating a lot of the tools that are in our world, of course, into that new world by looking it up on his phone and such. But he has this attitude that because he becomes friends with, of course, the king and his brother, the king's brother, right? The count, whatever he is. And so a lot of the show, a lot of the web novel has him making things. And as soon as he makes it, everyone's like, "Ooh, what's that?" Or the count be like, "Ooh, well, that seems interesting. What are you making?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm just making a little game thing." And then
It's
he
cool.
introduces it. Yeah, and then all of a sudden, "Oh, I want to do it." He's like, "Oh, sure." Then, "Oh, can you make me one?" "Oh, fine." "Oh, I guess I might as well make an extra one for the king because once he sees his brother has it, he's going to want to have it." So he just starts making a whole bunch for all his little pals. And it gets really annoying because he does this over and over and over. And he realizes in this world there's really not too many things for entertainment purposes. So there's a few chapters out there where he just constantly just makes nothing but new games, or introduces new things that no one's ever heard of. And of course, it goes through everyone being all so enlightened, so excited about how he brought all these items. And eventually, he brings baseball, which is terrible.
I'm surprised that did not make it into an episode.
Oh, it's so much in the future. Like I don't even
Oh,
know
it's
why. I don't even know why I read so much of the web novel. It was just so bad. But when it got to some of the fighting scenes and some of the troubles that happen in the future, it actually did get a little interesting. Um, I was actually interested when he was doing some other things. The whole Babylon thing was kind of somewhat interesting, but not really 100% there. And that's like that floating thing he found in the garden, right? But there's also those crystal creatures that he starts getting more and more into, and in the light novel that was actually interesting to me. That was what I was reading it for. But uh, the whole nine wives thing. I'm like almost to 170 chapters, and he's already on his sixth wife now, or
Ugh.
candidate. His sixth wife candidate. He still hasn't gotten to his supposed future nine. And it's funny because all the other girls find out about that as well, and they're all like, so now whenever a new girl comes in, they're like, he's supposed to have nine, so I guess we can make an exception for her. And they have these wife conferences and everything about, is she acceptable to join the wife conference or the wife circle and everything. Oh my god, I just, and he gets even more OP'd than what you've seen.
Oh, you got to go figure.
But yeah, you. I don't want to. I don't know if I should spoil it for you. Okay, spoilers. I'm going to just say spoilers. Anyone who doesn't want spoilers, just turn away for about 30 seconds or something. But
I don't think I'll feel
you,
bad about anything getting spoiled.
you eventually find out that when he was reincarnated, he was reincarnated in the god realm, and the god wasn't paying attention too much. So now he's got some god elements in him and everything. It's just like, what the?
My impression of it was, I'm not going to say like enjoyable or anything, but I watched it for its antics and zaniness, and it was fun enough. I will say that it gave me the impression of, as like Sean usually references, and I use the term now, the trashy otaku. It seemed more aired at, falling back on those tropes and just coming up with this story of, we all know he's super powered. Like he almost is that playthrough on Skyrim that people play on PC because they can, right? Because they can add stats to themselves and make themselves all powerful. It's somewhat human nature when you play a game. You just want to be the best or whatever. And I think it was interesting that someone like took that concept and tried to make a character in an RPG-esque world around having everything going his way as far as the magic and the strength stats and all that stuff. So, I mean, I will say it's probably going to be popular amongst the trashy otaku. Of the friends that I talked to this season, it typically was on their list of something they were watching, in the general community that I talked to. So, because, sometimes people know how much of an anime fan someone is, so they want recommendations, and it's like, well, from this season, there's this stuff that, everyone seems to be watching, so this was one I usually didn't have to recommend because they were already watching it for some reason. Of the people who are rating it, though, like, if you're actually a fan, I know Albert wouldn't rate it too highly, but it actually prominently gets, like, in the 7 out of 10 range, with the next best, of course, being 6 and 8 in those fields. But it's amongst its fandom.
Everything's a 7 on Mao.
I think the only reason people rate it highly is because it's new to them, maybe.
Yeah, well, that's kind of what I meant, like, off, as I call it, the trashy otaku. You're not necessarily watching something, like, they're the ones who like not saying something like, Death Note, because that came and hit like a cult classic, but kind of like how you had shows spawn off after, like, Future Diary and stuff like that. It's just this show that comes along, and there's not much to the story to like redeem it a whole lot, but it catches the imagination of the early people getting into anime, and they just like the concept. They like the world that's painted. I don't know if they'd want to be the protagonist. I think they just, for watching it for entertainment, it comes across as at least an entertaining story. It might not be, the most, it won't cause the epiphanies within people, but with as rudimentary of a plot line as it has its interesting premise is like the sky's the limit power for this character. He's always like coming up with ways to utilize his magic, and use because in this world you have elemental magic and everyone has like a magic unique to them, and because either he's reincarnated and God made it that way or whatever, he can use everyone's individual magic as well. And certain magic start playing off each other, so he can like mix magics that no one else has access to. And kind of like as Tank was saying, he can specifically like target enemies all in one area and launch an attack spell, just pinpoint striking enemies he can't lay eyes on. So it's like he is that powerful character, and sometimes I think people are just watching it because they wonder what kind of magic the author's gonna come up with next. Like how else can this guy, what is in within his realm of ability? What's gonna blow my mind next as far as making new spells based off his mix of spells? And that's more of the impression I got from it. Like nothing amazing going on with the story, but if you look at it, and not a lot of other anime try to say, well, how can one person in a world mix all this personal magic to make even more powerful stuff? And the funny thing, Tent, going a little bit off topic, there was that one Slime Mansion episode, and I don't know if it's that one series you were talking about, because like, sometimes when we'd be hanging out somewhere, you'd go, oh, there's this one guy about this guy making like mixing slimes and making hybrids off that. I don't know if these guys parodied that premise of that episode, or if within the realm of the light novel, this was a specific story you were talking about. But I figured they just parodied off that other thing you were reading.
No, it's completely different. But,
yeah, I figured.
But
it's kind of interesting when it's like I do like to hear when you find interest in stuff like light novels, and then I can see like another anime actively parody this thing that hasn't become an anime yet or ever will.
So unfortunately, most of the stuff I've been reading actually has been web novels, and then they change when they become light novels. So there's still some big differences between the two, but honestly, I don't see it getting better as a light novel.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll take out a bunch of the boring stuff, like when they're just going out. Like they skipped a lot of that stuff in the book, which I was kind of okay with. Just them going to town, him buying her clothing, and just little things like that was kind of a lot of that book. Because between each arc, they had basically a whole arc of just them relaxing, and that's when he would build games or go out with them and everything. But even as a harem anime, he, as far as I've gotten, he's only basically kissed the girls maybe twice.
Yeah, it didn't seem to depict him as the go-getter
And
womanizer type.
then also, if you think about it, a lot of his wives are super young.
Yeah, to the point where he's uncomfortable with it.
He's only 16, and Lindsay and Yaya and them I think are supposed to be 1 year younger, so they're like 14 or 15, and then the other girl's 14 years old, and then eventually he has an 11-year-old. It just
Yeah, because there was that episode where they were trying to get him married, and they're like, because in this RPG world, like marriage happens at a younger age, like it did in like the 1800s. And he was like, well, in the country I come from, like 16, 18 is more the youngest acceptable marrying age. Even that's pretty early then. And they're like, well, 14 is the go here, so or whatever. Like he did have a little cultural conflict, but
crazy shit. Okay, let's see here. Let me just put this title on here. Yokoso Jitsuryoku Shijo Shugi no something. It doesn't tell me the rest of the title.
oh, the elite one.
What's this show?
In English, it's actually going to be called like something like Classroom of the Elite, I believe. Yeah, it's got this long, meandering Japanese title, and we shortened it to about, essentially two
That'd be welcome
keywords
to something.
that links it. But yeah, like the Japanese yokutsu usually is like a welcome or something. So it's probably like welcome to the classroom of the elite or something. In I don't know Japanese that well, but
Sounds good.
I only picked it
this
because I thought that's what Albert had on number 4, but I see that
no,
was
I
for
just
something
messed.
else.
You just messed up real
So go
bad.
ahead and tell us about it, Nick. Though, was it good?
Um,
Is
it
that
had an interesting character in my opinion because it wants me to delve into the mystery now. To give a little prelude to this one, I think we might have talked about it, but just to basically rehash. Um, this is like a super elite private school, almost like Assassination Classroom, but without the teacher that they have to assassinate. Students who go here are basically given a smartphone like PDA, which keeps track of their class points and personal points, which I think a point works to the equivalent of either a dollar or specifically a yen. So it's either a penny or a dollar, I forget. But the student kind of actually, the school merits points to your PDA smartphone device, and they have like an on-scene shopping mall that's made to use those points. There's really no like money currency that circulates aside from these points, but they could be freely transferred between students and whatnot. And a lot of early part of this show is the protagonist, whose name is I Ayano Koji, I believe I remember. And they mostly refer to him that way. They never really use his other name, so like it's always Ayano Koji or whatever. Um, he he gets enrolled to this school, and they painted the character in the exact same way. Like what was that? What was that show with the other character with like the dead fish eyes? Was it my
my
rom
snafu
com
thing?
something or another?
Yeah, the snafu
Um,
show.
yeah, snafu. That's the English what we went with, snafu. Um, this character is almost like that character, but instead of loner personality mindset, you actually have a highly accomplished individual behind that dead eye low effort mentality. Um, you come to find out in the series that apparently people were raised in like a special facility somewhere, and I think he somehow escaped it as this really the only person left at the end, like because it's one of those like almost like human experimentation uh training, like I don't know, like a lot of times they do this, it's like they're trying to train spies at a young age or whatever, but somehow all we know is he got away from all that, and he is this really athletic, intelligent individual who hides it all behind mediocrity. He literally every test score he goes in and takes a test and he scores exactly 50. Well, how does he score exactly 50? Because he could do 100. He's intentionally getting 50. He tries to interact with the whole student body the least, but about halfway through the show, he's pressured into a teacher who's willing to consider his expulsion because the school, like whoever he's trying to get away from or live his low energy lifestyle, is after him, and the school is somewhat of a safe haven. So the whole premise behind this school, though, is they're in the lowest class, right? Class D or E or whatever. And while the students that fill each classroom, class A tends to be the top tier talent, B next best, C mediocre, D is like the lowest of the somewhat high end individuals. Um, Classes can actually erse up other classes based on their collective class score. So one of the other characters of the series, Suzune Horikita is her name. Her brother is like the student council president of the school, and it's her goal to rise this class or to get herself into class A, but that normally means bringing the rest of the class along with you, which we also seen in Assassination Classroom because this show somewhat features that a very similar structured bullying system as what's normally present in this hierarchy scheme. But at times Assassination Classroom was kind of weird because like it had moments where it was rather decent, but then a lot of moments where it just kind of meandered on in not as great of a way. Like, the teacher at times, it was all centered around that comedy. And this show doesn't have that going for it. It's just weaving its narrative of the cast of characters who usually have their own personality quirk. You almost got this like hikikomori net idol because of like a lot of the images they submit to the website side of things, but other than that, they're this rather antisocial, very shy, almost shut-in character. There's another character, Kikyo Kushida, who's pretty much a main cast member. She is often seen as the glue holding everything together. She is this really upbeat person who can be like anybody's friend and tries to be everybody's friend, but she almost has this like bipolar personality hidden within her where it's quickly revealed at some point that her positive personality is literally just that, an act for some reason. And she's really this bitter, vindictive person who isn't acting on it at a public level, but actively hates the people she's friends with behind the scenes. So, it tries to paint these weird characters in this setting of getting their class to somehow beat the better talent classes, because that's one specific character's motivation, and that's turned into this avant-garde individual's motivation, but he's still not going gung-ho with it. Like, manipulation is a common theme throughout this series. You have characters who subvert other classes with their antics, and a lot of it is figuring out who is manipulating who with their antics. Like, who is actually pulling off the manipulation? Almost everyone is trying, but whose manipulation is stronger or more subvertive of the rest of the class? Because that's something unique to Ayano Koji. He's a really low energy, minimal dialogue individual. Most of his dialogue is him thinking in his head in this series. But, whenever he's seen talking to someone, it usually ties in to how that affected the psychology of everything to make things go his way in the end. And that's kind of what I think is supposed to be the draw to the series. So I'm just going to say, if you liked a show like Assassination Classroom, but didn't necessarily appreciate the weird alien teacher, this is a little bit similar, focused amongst the, a just a cast of humans instead of alien superpowers or whatever, super science superpower technically.
What you're explaining is kind of weird and different from what I got from when I was watching. But I only think I saw the first episode, maybe the first two.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed more or less like the class was going to. I can kind of get where you get the assassination, like they're going to turn on each other for points or something like that, because it seemed like a lot of people wasted the points, and now they're going to try to attack those with points or manipulate those with points and stuff like that.
As I said, that's pretty much the mindset of only one individual in the classroom, that the true main protagonist is later then motivated to do so. But yeah, they are essentially the lowest class who's always made fun of, and these two individuals who are the core cast of the series are going to somehow try to get their class above, classes C, B, and A. And where this series ended, I don't think they have yet to usurp a class, but they're getting their team kind of together. The two of them are getting points for their collective class in such a way where they're becoming a threat to the other classes. And that's kind of where the series ends for now, if there's going to be more.
Would you recommend it? Or is it?
I mean, I can't really say that if you didn't like the smartphone one or the other one. I don't think it's doing anything new, unless you really like watching a character who is rather accomplished and can pull almost anything off, yet withholds his talent for some personal reason. Um, I kind of like that style of character because it does make me wonder. The dialogue is a little bit funny at times, but it's not a comedy. For instance, there was an altercation at one time between Horikita and her brother, where they were out on school grounds somewhere, and the brother attempts to attack the sister, right? He's fed up with her. She's saying like, I'm going to do this thing, and he's just so either embarrassed or um, unappreciative of his sister that he lashes out at her, which the main character steps in, and we see a little bit of potential martial artist skill within him. And as he's parrying the attacks of the student council president, he asks, what martial arts have you trained in? And the character responds, oh, just calligraphy and piano. And like, it has moments where the character just brushes things off. So there's an element to that story, and if you appreciate stuff like that, if you were rather fond somewhat of Assassination Classroom, that might be the only reason to watch it. But I don't think that this one's not as trashy otaku as some other shows, but I think it still fits into that vein. Where if you're a trashy otaku, go for it. If you like having this plot that delves into character development and weaves an amazing narrative of a fictional world, which I also like from anime myself, because I do like the trashy shows somewhat. Like, I'm okay with it. I acknowledge it's a reflection of anime as a whole, and I myself am okay with them as a form of entertainment, but I can see also how it depends on what kind of a fan you are. It really does.
Hmm.
So, like I said, if you're fine with the trashy otaku shows, sure, go for it. If you would rather watch stuff more like Made in the Abyss and just the things that turn anime on its head and makes you go, I like, the really serious, almost psychological shows. Like, even if like it's not supposed to be a psychological show, what it does to anime as a whole, like almost like Madoka Magica, that one wasn't truly psychological, but it turned the trope on its head and didn't follow to what you would expect from it, which is some interest for some people. And then other people try to watch Madoka and they just don't like it, either because it's not a frilly, full fun magical girl show. I know I had a friend try to watch it, and amongst my circle of anime friends, Madoka is a rather treasured, or at least not highly rated, but at least acknowledged as highly unique at its time, and it had a lot of viewers and a lot of fandom worldwide. Yet I have a friend who calls it absolute trash and hates it to high heck. So it's it is what it is.
Hmm. All right. Let's go ahead and move on to the next title then. Shingeki no Bahamut Virgin Soul.
Yeah, season 2.
Is this season
Yeah.
2, or is it just another season in the universe?
It's
No,
a
I mean,
spin-off that ties into the original story, really. It follows a different protagonist, but the characters of the original are still around
So
and later get highly involved in the plot.
is it like Danmachi, where they had the story follow the Loki family?
I mean, that one's more true to a spin-off, but this one,
this is a
Don
part
Machi
two
was
because
like, yeah,
it's
like a
set
part
10 years
two with
after
a
the
different
events.
protagonist.
10
And
years.
although it doesn't necessarily continue the main plot of the original show, because the plot was kind of over, at the end it ties into the original plot a little bit, but like for the most part it was kind of its own show where you could almost pick it up and watch it, and it was a standalone project until the old cast reoccurred. But
So like Sword Eater not, maybe?
nah, that one was still more of a spin-off. I'd almost say it's a little bit closer to like Magical Index and Railgun, how the two are kind of set in the same universe and typically have the same characters, but they that one's a little more definitive, and Index follows Magic Cast, and Railguns follows Psychic. But I was trying to put like a clear, somewhat division in the story here. Like the first one was following, what are their names? Shoot.
Favreau and Kaiser.
Yeah, and their
Fabro.
attempts to be bounty hunter knights, and the story that eventually happens with the tie-in of Bahamut, which is kind of like a later war piece, and the same thing kind of happens here. So it follows a similar template, but the initial story, since it follows a different character, it almost like repeated what kind of happened in season one. Like we're pursuing this story otherwise, but now we have to go mess with this thing that showed up at the end of season one, just like it did in season one. Well, we kind of antagonized it this time, but I mean, like for a show being about Bahamut, Bahamut usually is only present in the last 2-3 episodes, and then we're done with him. Like his name is in the title, but he's not typically the motivation of the whole show for the most part.
Okay, so
Yeah, so
was it good or not?
it's really mixed. All right. So when I started, so they say that the first season, Rage of Bahamut on Genesis, is a outstanding show. It was, very unique for its time. You would have never expected that quality to come off of a story based on a online card game, right?
Smartphone
Or
app, yeah.
smartphone app game. So yeah, they took it to places. I was really surprised. I thought the characters were unique. The color palette, despite Funimation's crappy streaming, was great, really interesting. The story was really involved, and it became, world encompassing. So, and the 12, or maybe it was a 13 episode, was really exciting, right? So, um, I was expecting. I had high hopes for this season two, which is titled Virgin Soul, and it follows the protagonist. And for the first half, this ended up being. I was surprised. This ended up being a 24 episode, right? So this is the
Yes.
second half that just concluded. The core, the first 12 episodes, I thought was again pretty interesting. Although I had some problems with how the story progressed. So Nina, I think, is a really interesting character, and she is first. It's a she, right? How many how many female protagonists do you get in kind of a semi fantasy esque action series? Um, and then she's at the capital. It's set 10 years after the fact, and the only previous character you see is Kaiser, who has become captain of the guards. So you don't know what happened to a lot of the others, although they eventually start showing up. So the first core I thought was really good. It was really exciting. Wanted to keep watching, and then the second core comes along, and then things get a little bit wonky. Um, the story starts to really show its cracks, like the pacing, the events, how the story events unfold, how some of the previous season's character start showing up, like Joan of Arc. Um, all that seemed forced at times, right? And then about halfway through, Nina has developed kind of a weird relationship with the king, Charius, of this country, who has been a brutal dictator and has been, all of demonkind he has subjugated in his place and in his country, and they're treated as slaves or worse. He has attacked the gods, the angelic beings, and taken things from them and killed them for eternity, right? Um, and and so he's portrayed initially as totally reprehensible, brutal dictator, um, and yet he at there's something about him because he goes around town disguised as a different person. It took me a while to realize, oh, that's the same person. But uh, and then there's like this supposed redeeming arc about why he did all the horrible, horrible things that he did. And that part I just could not buy. I just could not buy into. So it fell far short in the second core. And Nina just became this bubbling, shoujo manga protagonist, will do anything for her man, you know, and I just did not like how the story ended up. There were really missed opportunities and things that happened that did not follow through. So I can't really I can't really recommend it because of that, because the story just is really messy at the end and it doesn't tie together very well.
Seems kind of sad. So, do you think there's no way it was going to be able to redeem itself, or
I mean,
is it
it's
just
still
the
it's beautifully animated. It's Mappa, right? And the quality is outstanding. The animation never really suffered throughout, because it's partially like a lot of CG that the type of CG that you don't see often, but it's blended really well and it's very high quality animation. So if you're looking for like a fantasy type animation with a lot of actions and interesting characters, unique characters, a lot of death, sure, I would say check it out. It's definitely worth it, but don't expect something um, outstanding and great like the first season. Like the first season was of that 12 episodes was really surprising. It was really tightly scripted and really exciting.
so was the first season one core?
Yeah.
So do you think this
So
suffered because it went too long, or maybe it would have been better if they just stuck to another one core?
I think for the story that they were trying to tell, they wanted two core, but I think they could have told it in less than the 24 episodes. I'm not sure it would have fit in 12 episodes. That's the problem. It felt more like, you know, 12 plus a couple OVAs might have wrapped things up. So, and it was missed opportunity, I think. That's kind of how I felt at the end. So, I'd still recommend it to certain people, but I can't recommend it to everyone.
All right. Unless Nick has anything to say, I don't. We go to the next title then. I just put this up because I want to know. Like, I wasn't really too much into New Game.
Right.
People that were
Did you
fans
did
of
you
it.
watch it
So no, I haven't watched New Game.
all, first season or not?
Oh, I watched half of the first season, but I don't know. Like I tend to watch those types of shows,
Uh-huh.
but just this one, I don't know. It just didn't get me. It didn't catch my interest. And when season two came out, since I didn't finish season one, I didn't even bother with it. But was it just as good as the first season, or did it get better? Or
So it's kind of I think there's some debate about that. I fall in the category of I thought it was better than season 1. So the overall story arc and for more uh, I guess for a moe blob show, you're expecting just kind of a slice of life, antics and nothing really overarching. But in fact, this new game with two exclamation points, season 2, did have that as both Alba, had has to deal with people coming into the company after her, right? Her kohai or people that she needs to help out, and her growth as a character designer, and her struggles as she tries to, compete with uh, her senpai idol, Yagami, right? And so I thought it was really well done, despite all the unnecessary fan service thrown in. And and you know, yeah, I think overall it ended really strongly and ended in a place where you don't necessarily need a third season, although I believe the manga is continuing. This covered essentially volumes 4 through 6 of the manga, and ends in a definite point with a lot of character growth for all of them.
So are they still
So
working
if you
on the
like,
same game, or is it like they're onto new
no,
games?
no. So this, no, the first one came out, and that was the first season, Fairy Tales 3, I think it was, right, or maybe it was 2. Anyway, this one they made a complete new game, and that's why Alba was in competition with Yagami to become the main character designer. By the way, obviously there's
I think it was
politics
Fairy
involved.
Story. Not that it matters.
Yeah, they were in season 1.
The game. Yeah, well, Fairy Tales, I thought.
Oh, yeah,
Like
thanks.
that sounds too much like the anime Fairy Tale.
Yeah, I forgot. But this one, the game they were working on was called Peko. Um, and so, yeah, uh, definitely recommend it to anyone who liked New Game, season 1.
Oh, I
Rec-
recommend it more than I did New Game, man. Myself.
okay, so you liked it more than season 1?
I did. I really did. And I don't know if it was because of like Inverse Shirobako or something, because it kind of followed that scheme, right? Because in season 1 or 2, they made Shirobako, they made their original first, or no, they worked with somebody first, and then they worked on their own original thing. Or I can't remember the order that it did really. If it was the original first and then working with a mangaka basically. But
Right.
um I fell into that thing where the New Game season 1, I watched it all, and I really wasn't that impressed with it. I think what I enjoyed more was near the end, when like as a company they got to watch their game be released. But the antics of what went on in the first season didn't really impress me, because it was almost more like cubicle comedy. Like it focused on them talking to each other instead of really, like, they did work on the project. Like they did, I need to get my 3D model made, and it focused a little bit on, oh, you need to do this thing because it's causing bugs here. But that didn't feel as like a strong element to the story. Like it was more about the characters interacting with each other and like going places than it really had to do with game development. Is the impression I got from season 1, and season 2 really turned that around for me, because as we said, Alba, one of the main actual characters of this thing, her concept gets approved into the next game. So like, she didn't really definitively put the rails on this thing. She just presented this idea, and the company kind of collectively developed it with her, which to me was a really cool process to watch as an anime season, because you did get to see like a little bit about how far Albo's come, and like the when the new blood hit the office, some of the mentalities behind the personalities and life experiences of the new talent, and like how that mingled in with the company. It just, season 1 didn't seem to have that going for it. Like season 2, the vibe felt completely different, and I think it's because it was a lot more like Shirobako to game development than the first season was. Is how like the impression that I got. And
Okay.
I really did like watching them develop this game. Like, it almost kind of brought the viewer along for the ride. Like, even though we weren't working on the game, we felt like we were like on that team at least. Like, we were on the team. Like we got to see them breathe life into that thing. Where when the original fairy story was coming out, like it just didn't have that same vibe. Like, do you know what I'm talking about, Albert, or no?
No, I get it because I mean in the first season she joins when that production is already ongoing,
Yeah,
right?
like it was
So
early in its start. Like, they just
yeah.
declared it, and they were, yeah.
Whereas with this, you're following her as she is trying to gain experience and responsibilities.
Hmm.
So there's a tie-in with how the game is developing along with her character development.
Yeah, and I just appreciated that so much more. Like, on this first season, I'm on the fence as a fan, but when this second season hit, I didn't know what to expect from it, and because I was on the fence with season one and ended up being uh, having more enjoyment come from season two, it just kind of made me appreciate the series even more. And I don't do that often. Normally, when a season two of something comes out that I was like on the fence initially with, I don't usually get super impressed by it. Symphogear, which is on its like what, sixth or seventh season, like, because it just had a new project this season. When I finally think that they're going to put the nail in the coffin for that thing, they just open up to more story. Son of a gun! How long are you going to keep this going? But every once in a while, like, I'm surprised to see a certain season two. Like, I just did not get the impression that that was that successful of a show to get a season two. And I didn't really feel that way with New Game initially. It's not that I was surprised, but like, I didn't know what to expect from season two based off what season one did, and I'm glad it was different. Like, I liked it a lot better. So it's my 2 cents. It did a really nice thing with its characters. I because you even she has the one friend, I can't remember her name. She doesn't usually make the main cast. Do you remember her little like friend who's the debugger who joined as
Yeah,
a
Nene.
Nene? Yeah, Nene Chi. That's right. Um, she was even a lot more involved in it. Like, I liked when they brought her on as a debugger in the first season, but like, to me, I never really enjoyed her character because she was
Oh,
almost
really?
this tag along. Yeah, well, yeah, because to me she felt more like the tag along, right? I
Yeah,
didn't
she
necessarily
definitely was.
I didn't like how she was integrated into season one because like I just never had a fondness for that character. I liked when she was a debugger, but outside of her role as the debugger, I didn't enjoy the character too much, and they painted her in such a better light in this season two. Like, I actually appreciate the character in season two, whereas in season one, it's like when you did that debugging thing, you were really cool, but outside of that, get out of the show. So I was really, I don't know, did like, I almost feel like someone else maybe took over the helm for this one, but I never looked in. I don't really look into the staff of director, series composition, scenario writer, all that. I ignore. Just provide my raw
Um,
opinion on what I watched.
yeah, I don't remember if they changed staff or not, but I think it was the same. Let's see. Yeah, directed by same, written by same, music
Well, that's
by
good.
same, all by Donga Kobo. So consistent. It's probably also reflective of the original material, because it is an adaptation. But I know they moved some chapters around,
Okay.
and the introductions was changed, and definitely everything meshed together really well. So kudos to the writing team. But Nene was my favorite character.
I liked her better in season two than I did one. I will admit. I don't really know if I have a developed favorite character of this series. None of them really seem to shout out to me, but
That's her
I at
face.
least don't have an annoying character anymore that I just hate.
Well, that's good. Uh, maybe I'll have a moment where I'm like, I need a new Moya blob to watch. I'll just go back and watch this. Moya blob. Okay, let's go to the next talking point, which
which is
I almost picked the wrong title. Oops. Sakura Quest. Almost picked Sakura Reset or something.
Sagadra reset.
oh yeah. So
Sakura
this
Quest.
Sakura Quest, just wanted to talk about it because it was a two-core show that finally ended. This is the third in the PA Works um, Working Girl series. So the first one was Hanasaku Iroha, right?
Good.
And the second one was Shirobako, which both of them are great. Although Shirobako is in a league of its own. It's a masterpiece. So um, the second the series, and yet again, you have as protagonists, um, five girls in this case, and I think you could get the synopsis and all that and what happens, but this a real problem in Japan, which is the rural communities, further out from all the big cities are dying, like literally dying, right? And uh, the lack in population growth is a huge part of that. And so um, the topic is really hard to tackle, I think, but I thought they did a really good job. I really like the fact that um, they fail a lot in this, right? She comes to the new to Manoyama, um, uh, Koharu. Uh, I guess wait, they often refer to as Yoshino-chan. So Yoshino comes to Koharu to Manoyama, right? That she's the middle pink-haired girl, and is for 1 year going to be their little kingdom, their mini kingdom's queen, and is trying to revive the local economy and is trying to have tourists come to Manoyama or have you know improve the situation in Manoyama because Manoyama is slowly but surely dying. So the first core is a lot of her failure and her lack of understanding of the locals, her lack of respect for the locals. Um, and she herself comes from a not from Tokyo. That's where she was trying to find a job, but she is also from a rural community, a seaside village, right? And so I thought all the characters were really distinct and strong, and they had their own struggles. Um, and yeah, I just really thought it was a great show, and this is something that I can recommend to almost anyone. Uh, It has an ensemble cast. The story is great. It is tackling real life problems. The animation, there were points where I thought they were slightly getting off model, but nothing, egregious. So PA Works kept up the quality for the most part. Um, there were distinct story arcs that you could enjoy. Uh, and the solutions that they come up with and the struggles that they have to go through, I think reflect real life. And so, yeah, I think it's a great show and that more people should watch it.
Hmm. That's good. Nothing to add, Nick, or
Um, I vastly agree. It's kind of weird because there are times where I felt the story just tended to drag at times. Like it was just getting a little too slow for my liking, but it always managed to redeem itself in some way. And, you know, it was kind of part of the process because, as kind of Albert was saying, when Yoshino was just getting into the job, her ideas were very like what you would expect from being new to something. It's you're thrown into the because having a community be on its way out, on its deathbed dying, is if it was easy to fix, it wouldn't be an issue. And you know, how do you expect this outsider or any one individual to fix it, especially when you know the funny thing is I actually don't usually like smaller outskirty like village stuff either. Like I kind of refuse to watch the Moe Blob non Biore because I don't usually like countryside stuff.
Heresy.
But because you know at first it had this really weird premise. She comes in, she's declared the queen of this building that like somebody like the mayor just built on a whim to try to because he was doing the same thing. He's been constantly trying to revitalize this. So I will say that while it's rather long-winded, I really like, especially as the show's nearing its completion, what it does. You know, Yoshino is so much more developed with trying to come to terms with, you know, not just trying stuff for the sake of trying stuff, but wondering, you know, what her angle is. Like she almost asks like, what is my end game? What is the point of trying this? Is it actually in the village's best interest? And I just, you know, if it was just that, if all she said was that, I probably wouldn't like the show that much. But then the show, near its end, kind of reveals the history of certain older key cast characters of the show and like, you know, how they saw this being an issue and were much like Yoshino, right? They didn't want to live in a small scale town as teenagers and they wanted to move to the big city themselves. And how it just kind of painted the history and kind of like they did this little bit where they were like cleaning up some random aspects of the city and near the like literally the last 4 episodes they just kind of reveal this big thing. And I mean I like it and hate it at the same time because like all of a sudden like this show is like literally 4 episodes away from completion and it's like, oh yeah, our town was about adapting all along, and we've forgotten this, and we were trying crazy stuff all this time. But if we just like stayed true to the like the original premise of the town, kind of came out of nowhere for me. Like if it had that extensive history, it's just like we've forgotten, but now we remember. Like I liked that and how it tied into Yoshino, but I also just don't like how it just kind of came out of like nowhere in a sense, you know, like we had this long history of being this way. We don't know why we went away or forgot about that. But now that we're back on track again, things are at least looking better. Like they might not be fixed, but the town's a lot happier. Some things are a little more positive than you know how how things first happened because unfortunately everything that they try almost has a fleeting moment of being temporary, right? Like if you hold events, people come in for the events, but they're not going to move there for the events, like right, like when I go watch my anime movies, I go to the city that I need to get that done in, but I'm not going to move there. Having retention was a big issue, and one of the things that I liked was they kind of had like a remote like sister city or something that was a part of them. I don't really get how they would like call another town something else, but like consider it a part of them. But that just might be residential stuff I don't get. But it had a fun moment where like they had a government funded expenditure to like give a lot of the older remote folk like tablets, and they were like teaching like people in their 60s, 70s, 80s like how to use tablet and internet technology. And I like the show for messing around with concepts like that. As I've said, from time to time, anime tends to fall on its tropes, and you don't see a lot of things coming from certain. You don't see people trying to be not reintegrated into society, but pulled out from the rock that they live under. And there's a lot that I came to appreciate from this show, but I still think that um, it's like 24 episodes. It has moments where it kind of dips down in entertainment, but its narrative as a whole, I rather did enjoy.
Did you watch it subbed or dubbed?
Subtitled.
Okay. Curious about the dub quality because I know it's available as a dub
Uh,
on Funimation.
I
But
every once in a while, I give them a shot. Like I just, if it's available to me, I attempt to listen to it. And sometimes I'm like, oh well, this show's rather acceptable, but there's usually always a character that, I'm sorry, but I'm a firm believer that because we don't really, voice acting is not something that's really prominent in America. Like we've got Disney. I don't know where they get their talent from. I've never had complaints there for the most part. Um, Stuff in cartoons tends to be pretty acceptable, but like when it comes to where like Aniplex of America or Funimation or Sentai, whoever like grabs people from like conventions or wherever they source talent from is just to, like it's almost like they have someone circulating in their talent pool that they just need to give a job to. They to me they don't seem like a good fit for the role. It's just that person needs a job, give them this role, and that's how they get assigned.
The thing that bugs me about dubbing in America is that I think they try to do it too much as a Japanese thing or keep it just a Japanese way, but like they try to add all those weird oh no, it's wow 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 types of things that they always add in Japanese anime.
Yeah.
And
Here's another
it
example of
doesn't
that.
it doesn't I don't know. I just wish that they wouldn't add some of that stuff when they do dubs. Just make it more Americanized, and it might just do good on its own that way as an anime. I don't know, but
No, I mean I get what you're saying, but the fun thing about how fundamentally like different Japanese is from English at that point. Not that I want to derail this too much, but because Japan does that, it's hard to fill in that gap of when characters use that fua fua or kira kira thing. Like, how do you get that to fit in English? And while anime is known for its crazy zany outtakes at times, like weird character laughing, weird faces, whatever. Um, I don't think like American voice goes alongside that really well. But I don't know if it's just a miscasting issue or we're just not used to English working the way Japanese does. Like that just doesn't happen in schools, in Hollywood films, and like in no other context. And with Japanese, it's kind of like the language just fundamentally works somewhat that way itself. And while anime promotes and it shows extreme examples, outside of anime, people still sometimes talk like that and do things like that. And that's why it's so hard to adapt, I think, English to Japanese, but this is just my sentiment.
well, I just want to make a quick call out to Sean. Sean, I see your live chat. I don't know when he started talking, but he says old game win. So, let's go ahead and go to the next title, though. What should we talk about next?
What is there?
There's quite a bit still, but a good title. Then we got just one left. Give me a second. I went to the wrong folder. Tsuda something.
No,
Chuda.
the one that you did watch or whatever.
Yeah. If I can only find the title, I can't find it in this folder.
What?
Oh, there it is. I found it. Never mind. It looks like almost like 5 other things in here. Tsuda Children. Oh, you can't see that title
So
on this thing at all. It's all green and it
I
matches
think
with
I
everything
think we
back
all
there.
watched it, right?
Hmm.
Yeah. It was a short, so it's easy to watch.
Yep. It was about 15 minutes, right? Um,
Uh, yeah, it was a half episode. Like, I think it was actually around 13, but it was one
yep.
of the only things I
12
watched.
episodes. 12 episodes. It's anthology style, so a lot of different characters. Some of them, did not get as much screen time, which is a complaint you'll hear with anthologies. But it can't be helped. There are certain characters that had more story in the original manga, so that you can follow on a definite arc, right? And and I don't. There were some characters that I really liked when reading the manga that got very few scenes, like cameos essentially. But um, it was a fantastic show. Who would have thought that a web comic? This started as a web comic, but he is a published author, Wakabayashi. Adaptation. It's 15 minutes. It gets a pretty good cast of voice actors to help out, and yeah, the quality of the animation itself is solid all the way through. You know, the the, the voice acting is great. The stories that they picked, they they were all interesting. It showed a variety of right, and you see characters actually kissing for a change. Um, Struggling with being in love and maintaining a relationship and all of that. So great show that is relationships done right, despite some of the wackiness that appears, like Katori Senpai, the blonde haired kid that you see there on the screen, who shows up and spurts nonsense, but acts super cool, super annoying, right? And in the I don't know if I can't remember if they had it, but like in the manga, it's implied that he's actually someone that already graduated from
Oh,
that high school and just randomly keeps showing up, right?
that's great.
or or something like that. Like I forget exactly what, but he doesn't appear to be like in a proper class. But anyway, yeah, it's great. It's a rom com done 100% correct, and it was probably my favorite show from last season, summer season. Highly recommend it to anyone who would watch it.
So the thing about this show that I loved, and I love this show as well, was that it's really fun to talk about with some of my friends because you just it's one of those like, oh, this pairing was the best or that pairing was the best and stuff like that. And they also have relationships in different phases all throughout. You have the ones that are just starting. You see the ones where they're just blooming. You see where they're already in a relationship and other people can't believe it. And then you even have the ones that are just so close to each other that you don't realize that they're in a relationship at all. And they don't know how to move it up and stuff like that. There's just so many varieties out there that just makes it great. But um, my favorite couple was the Golda and uh, his girl, whatever her name was.
Oh yeah, I'm drawing a blank.
That's what I'm doing too. I just remember Goda and the purple-haired girl, Ayaka maybe Kamine.
BRB.
But those two were just so much fun. It was just and also the delinquent. But at times I found myself also kind of like, oh man, I wish there's just so much more of this. Like they would always end on these weird moments where you're like, oh, can't you just show more? Then they would go to another couple, and then they would come back later on. But it was so much fun. But that senpai guy you're talking about, and you have on your screen right there, he drove me crazy. Like, what is this guy? How he's acted and everything? I couldn't believe it. He just was just so out there. I'm like, seriously?
Yeah,
And
it's it's wacky. He's one of the wackiness that randomly appears, right? Because he's like, "Oh, don't fall in love with me because I'm so cool.
his
I'm the
lines,
dating master."
yeah, his lines, like it's one of those things. I'm like, oh my god, you're such an idiot, but I have to. I'm watching because I want to just see how bad you are, somewhat. What other like Playboy lines can you spew out there without any shame and trick this girl somehow?
Yeah,
Well, he's not really trying to trick her. He's just being just weird guy, and she's just in her own delusion too, which is kind of even crazier how she gets that way. But they also had the more down to earth relationships that were kind of fun. Like even with that girl, when she
and
finds out the little sister is
the little
chatting with her.
sister,
Oh, it had so many
the
memorable
little
moments in
sister's
this show.
completely Okan, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and how she tricks her. Yeah, it's great.
This
I
series
was
just
like,
had a lot of really great moments. And her character development I thought was really well too.
hmm
See,
Uh,
I don't remember
Takano.
their names, and like I don't have like a widespread of the cast because this is like a hard one to list the cast for because normally you promote like the key characters, the mains, and the highest supporting roles, but this one was just so diversified. It's hard to spot them in a list or anything. It was it was like the glasses character and like the blonde, long haired.
yeah,
How
Oh, the Yankee girl. Yeah.
yeah, well, yeah, like yeah, she was kind of a delinquent, and he was kind of like this really studious student, and like I really liked the two of them and like how their relationship was like forming, if you will, because it was just so raw and like the two. I wish there was more screen time of them, and I know you're gonna say that, but or you we were saying that, but I'd almost appreciate like a spin off of those two more fully, but.
I kind of wish that they did a full episodes of this series, but with the I don't know, it just I really hope they do another season.
I mean, he's
Is there enough
continuing to
content?
write. Yeah, I mean, they kind of followed like a 1 year of events, right? So there are things that happened that they skipped over, obviously, because it don't quite fit into the episode number and format. And then he's still writing, although it hasn't. I don't remember anything new coming out real recently. But they're after the 1 year point, like the third years graduate, and they're still continuing stories um, about the second years, the first years who became second years, second years who are now third years. The astronomy club's storyline is still going. So yeah, there's enough content to cover a whole nother year. The way he's writing it, so maybe it could be something like Non Non Biori season 2, where they'll cover the same timeline that's occurring, but some of the other characters. But I don't think there's enough of that to actually make that work. So I don't
If
know. I,
any,
I really enjoyed it.
if anything, I hope they release an OVA, maybe like one OVA every season or something like that, like every quarter. Just give us a little something.
Yeah, there's some other interesting characters too. So
Yeah, I mean, this is easily recommendable, unless you're not into, I guess, rom-coms. But it's easy to recommend because of the length. It's not that long, so you can get through easy. Um, I will have to say you do kind of want to watch it in order because some future events don't make sense unless you watch to some other events that have happened previously. So
hmm
it is linear storytelling. It's not like the typical shorts where you can almost pick up anywhere. It seems on some of the shorts.
yeah, definitely.
So that is somewhat different from uh, your typical shorts. But it, yeah, it's great, and I think if you watch it as a group with a maybe not as a group of friends, but watch it at the same time, it makes it more enjoyable because then you can just talk about your favorite pairings and like favorite moments because there's plenty of moments in there that just spark memories, and when someone starts talking about one, it just brings up more and more.
hmm
I can't wait to see something else like this in the future as well. It's
We shall see.
yeah, not much else to say about this show except for watch it if you can stomach rom-coms, I guess. And don't get tricked by its simpleness. It's really good. So, are there any other titles you guys want to talk about, or
There's one I kind of want to badmouth, but
Go for it.
uh,
um, do you have the title one for? It was another short of this season. The Nora to Ojo to Nekoran or Nora Neko Heart.
Oh God.
oh, that one, this one
Well,
here?
there's something in particular that needs to be said about this, and I need to badmouth them for because it's the worst. One of the episodes was not even anime, and what they did was stupid, and I want to know why they did it.
That's a
Oh,
good question.
there's the
Did
title
you
for
watch it
you.
all?
I
Do you know
watched
what
the
I'm
whole
talking about?
thing. So
Oh
yeah,
Jesus!
I know that episode. I'm like, what the hell?
I would not have
Because
expected you to watch the whole thing.
well, because it's a freaking 5 minute, right?
Yeah, but
So
still,
it's short, so
just
I don't
off the
really.
quality alone.
No, it was a horrible quality show. Like the animation was barely animated, and it's
you
based on
know,
a visual novel. So
I
If
can
anything,
somewhat
it
like
seemed
animation
to
style. Like I like the effect that it pulled off. Now I'm not saying I wish there was a lot more like it, but it didn't rub me too badly the wrong way. Like I thought, like I did analyze, like it pulled me in enough to at least look at the style and wonder, like, because I've seen that before where. Kind of like that Crane Girls one, where it's almost like this one's still like animated to some level, but almost how like those look like really 2D at times, almost like a much more complex episode of South Park, basically.
yeah,
um, but I at least they integrated anime style into it a lot better than the Crane Girls or any other show. So I was at least pulled into its visual style a little bit, which I think kind of enticed me to watch as much of it as I did. But the premise here was that there's like a necromancer character whose name's not Nora because that's the main guy. I can try to pull up their names real quick. Um,
Patricia.
oh yeah, Patricia. So episode 1 and 2 of this thing I really did like, and that made me wonder like, oh, this is going to be a good comedy. I'm really going to like it. Um, but after 1 and 2, it just kind of went like off a freaking wall somehow, because again, the
Switching
main
bait.
plot line was Patricia used, I guess, necromancy magic or just general magic because she's from the underworld. She's not a human in the traditional sense. To turn the protagonist into a black cat, and we never see his human form. It is indicated once that he turns back to human, but we don't get to see the character art there. We've only ever known what he looks like as a cat, And I think the whole thing is in like the early episode, it's claimed that like he just someone needs to like kiss him princess and frog style, and that'll be it, and then it'll be over. So like with such a simple premise, I wondered what they were going to do for comedy to pull that out. And like I said, I did enjoy episode 1 and 2, but in one of the episodes, like sometimes it almost seemed like they just let the voice actors come up with stuff. Because I remember they did this weird Sentai episode thing where they had like this combined mech that was so bad it just made no sense, and I hated it. And one episode that I'll take the honors of calling them out on this. They got source footage from like a petting zoo somewhere, like specifically like a goat pen, and each of the voice actors basically somehow picked a goat and voice overdubbed the goat and just tried to make sense of the random goat footage that they had. And they never acknowledged it again, which I wouldn't want them to. Like I would not want that to continue, but it's not even anime. You're watching like literally live footage of a goat petting zoo with no one in it, and you're just voice dubbing the goats. And this is like an episode of anime. I just
Yeah.
So
That
Sean
episode.
says that this was a Japanese adult visual novel.
well,
Yep.
yeah, but it so much was not really like I've seen a lot worse to come from anime when they're trying to be based around adult stuff. So I don't know if they were just trying to show something entertaining to that particular fandom, if that was a reference to the visual novel somehow, like that was kind of a meta thing to the visual novel. They did something like that in the visual novel too, or like it had some correlation. I don't know because I never played it, but that was like it was just god awful at times. Like it didn't follow its original narrative. It didn't try to make humor based on the characters at hand. It just went off the wall and did stupid stuff. And that was like a majority of the episodes. And when it actually
Yeah,
kind
pretty
of
much.
tried to be itself, then like because the ending episode kind of tied back into like what the first two set up. Some of the episodes were somewhat decent, but but uh yet, according to Annie List, it got the fourth most popular of summer 17 TV show.
What?
What?
Yeah, it was the sixth highest rated in summer, and mind you, like Knights and Magic like only hit 10, but like the users of this site put this thing at 15th highest rated 2017, eighth most popular, sixth highest rated summer, and fourth most popular summer.
God damn it.
Idiots.
Well, someone watching, I guess, says they're adding it to their watch list.
Oh Jesus. You don't have much to look forward to. I warn you. Like you're going to watch a joke of an anime, and that's fine. Like it's fine to watch those jokes, but this thing is just it's that these things are fun to talk about in that right, because then years from now, it's like, do you remember that one shitty little show that did this shit? And like they come to an interesting point of conversation at times, but fundamentally, like looking at the score spread of this thing as well, typically people rated it a 5 out of 10 at best, and like its score distribution and plotting like gives it an under 50% average, but it outranks shows with much higher ratings. So it's like, how does this thing's ratings put it higher? Because I guess people vote for it, and that only is the popularity. I
But where
have
did
no
Citizen Children go? That's
I
below
can
this
look that
show. That's gonna.
yeah, it's right above me actually, so I had it open, but I didn't actually look at its statistics. So third highest rated of all time, 16th most popular of all time, the highest rated of 2017, the most popular of 2017, the highest rated of summer, and the most popular of
Okay.
summer.
Any list kind of saved themselves there.
Yeah, and most people giving it a 7, 8, and 9 out of 10. Like those numbers are really near each other, and its average score is somehow only 75%. Well, I guess that makes sense with like 70% being the 7 out of 10, but with a rating at least 7.5 out of 10, it did pretty good on any list.
Huh.
Yeah, I did not expect this show to hit these numbers. I just glanced over and went, my God.
Oh man, something's wrong with children these days.
Uh-huh.
Might as well watch that Centaur no Nayami.
Oh God.
Well, if this thing outranked like Knights and Magic and the new game, double exclamation mark.
Hell, Aho Girl might be ranked number 2 now.
Well, like Aho Girl, at least it did what I thought like this show would. Like it followed its concept all the way through. Like it just tried to come up with humor, whereas this show, like I said, the first two painted this picture of what to expect from the rest, and then most of the episodes did not deliver. Some of them did, and when it did deliver, it just made me want more of the same. Like why couldn't this whole thing just be put on rails and forced to be itself instead of this? I don't even know from the director standpoint who okayed that goat thing. Like how do you do that? When has it happened in anime before? Did you just do that for an accolade of oh, our show did this first, woohoo, now you're going to see everyone else? Like next we're going to get footage of one of those cat cafes, and we're going to voice over the cats, and I don't know. Shoot, it's going to happen now, and it's going to be this studio.
Okay.
It was this studio.
I mean, since we were talking about it a little, let's just finish off with Aho Girl.
It's only accredited one director, which he might have been the only one on it. There's like staff-wise, no one else got a credit on any of this.
They're all anonymous. We don't want to be known. We don't want to be known for this show.
But
let's go ahead and
studio, and I couldn't find it.
Yeah, let's move to Aho Girl, because that show at least was stupid funny, maybe. A bit of it. I think I got halfway through it, and
I don't watch it.
I think it was like, even though it was a short, I think it was like one of those 12-minute shorts as well. They had their own small stories. So there's like 4 stories within each short. So, and of course, it all followed this Aho Girl, whatever her name is, and all the stupid things she does, and just. I'll admit, I found some of it funny, especially when it got to the mother was added into it.
I forgot about her.
Oh, the mother.
Out of like the later half, but oh my god, that mother.
Oh yeah, the mother. Oh my god, she made me bust up laughing. Like at first, it seemed like she was going to be a normal person. Like I thought she was the balance to the show, but then her true colors came out. Now you know why her daughter's the way she is.
No. You cannot blame that daughter on that mother. I think most of the mother's personality developed because of the daughter.
Yeah, and then you feel so sorry for that guy's sister. Like, she knows.
Quick Annie chart list, just because I had it and I was looking at it. 20th highest rated all time, 24th most popular of all time, second highest this season, second most popular this season, second highest rated summer, second most popular summer. So it looks like the user base really loves their comedic shorts and are gonna rate them to high hell. But yeah, it's funny. I loved the animation at times. Like it really reminded me. I know the studio. I just can't put my hand on. They're known for, I believe, their shorts. If they're who I think they are. And maybe it wasn't who I thought it was, but still, they do shorts, and I know or at least I know what inspired their visual style. Certain characters were very entertaining. Not that they have to be likable. The premise is the show is literally called Aho Girl, or like, Aho is that common insult that's thrown around in anime right next to baka. So you can almost translate this one yourself. I think we're going to call it something a little bit nicer in English, though. Clueless Girl, I believe, is going to be the eventual English title.
Yeah, no, that's not what it means.
No, it's more like dumb. dumb,
I'm
right?
sure any anime fans will get right at what
Yeah.
it means. Like, you don't need that explanation, but the American market isn't as bold as the Japanese. And yeah, I mean, it just had a lot of fun with its premise of one of the most main protagonist is a goddamn idiot who has a thing for the protagonist or another protagonist who is really smart. The Akutsu Akuru, I believe. Like, his name was really similar first to last, and it's funny because it almost had that that straight man humor, right? She would have that, but like, she was full pursuit, way off the tracks, way derailed in her comedic pursuit of playing the joke. But that was her personality too. She's not that bright, and much like that comedian style was made, the protagonist Akutsu or Akuru, whatever, I forget which name they used the most for him, would straighten the idiot out, typically with physical violence. But it just developed this funny cast of characters with, the scenarios were always hilarious, and some skits were much better than others, I will admit. Like, sometimes the characters played to their personalities well and it worked out well for the scenario at hand, and other times I think it just meandered on a little too much into this joke that wasn't as funny as them putting the personalities to the characters. Like there was this one funny skit that I think I hated the most. Not that I hated it, but we saw Aho Girl go up against a school of delinquents because they squandered the last banana sundae or shake that a company made. And Aho Girl really has a thing. Her character is very saru, very monkey, and she has a big thing for bananas. And that's another thing I wanted to admit. Only show of the season that I skipped the intro for. I hated that thing with a passion.
But they changed it every single
I
time.
know they do, but I hated that it's the only one I skipped, and I usually make a point to always watch them, but this one I just skip. I don't want to hear it. um, but yeah, so like it had fun with itself. A lot of the skits were pretty good. A lot of the personality quirks of the characters worked with the humor at hand, but like I said, the problem with it was certain things were much funnier and more memorable than other moments. So it's hard to demand a standard of comedy. Like, you just can't, like, not every skit can just be comedic gold, but because it set the tone for the whole episode was the thing for me. So there are the episodes that I would just love, and then I would expect to love the next one or whatever, and it would just seem to fall flat. And sometimes, like, I do blame certain skits not involving characters or whatever, but even though I blame it, it's not that it's necessarily a fault of the show, because it's a hard thing to enforce or demand. um just make demands of, it's just, I think it would have been a lot nicer if they were more consistent with that style, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah, like, I'll admit there's quite a few scenes that just made me bust out laughing, like and stuff like that. And then there are just some scenes where I'm like, oh my, just hit her, and then of course he would. I'll be like, thank you. So they had a what's going on, but that's why I probably didn't finish, because I felt like watching halfway through it, I got pretty much everything I could from it. It was just probably just going to reuse a lot of the same things, or just be rehashes of some stuff. But yeah, not much to say about this show except for, the opening was so awesome. Everyone should watch the opening.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I think the shorts are just being more popular because they're easier to watch, faster to watch, and stuff like that. I don't think this is really that top tier of a show, but
Second best of the season. You don't know what you're talking
yeah.
about.
But other than that, let's just go ahead and end on this low note. Or no, let's see if we can save it with this. No game, no life. Zero. It aired this week
Technically,
in
it
theaters.
showed the dub today, so your only two chances of watching it have gone at what, like by about, if it started at around 1, so it would have been 3 p.m. today, whatever respective time zone you're in, that's when you missed it. The final
Yeah.
credit roll was at 3 p.m. today.
So I for one went. I took some days off of work so I can watch
Some
this.
days. Did you go today to watch it?
No, no, no. Today's my normal day off. But I
Okay.
figured, since it was in the middle of the week, I'll just take the rest of the week off. So,
All right. I was about to say, this is no like road trip, hotel rent,
but
get it done
I
movie.
I really liked it. I would have to
Yeah.
say
Yeah.
for uh the movie. I don't want to say any spoilers because you'll get plenty of that if you went to the theater.
One thing I will at least say though, not spoiler level, is because it is a prequel film, because it doesn't follow the traditional cast, they're only around for a brief moment near the beginning and very end of the show. Um, it it's a much more serious tone of a film. Sora, the protagonist of No Game No Life, was this like the embodiment of otaku trash, right? He was otaku trash culture. Along with his sister Shiro, they just made that comedy and really sold that new trend anime, well, new trend otakuism that makes you like shows like In Another World with a Smartphone and so forth. Um, the characters aren't like that in the film. They are basically going through World War I, except fantasy version. So you don't really have that zany lifestyle that No Game No Life benefited from. So while the movie still has moments of comedy, has moments of action, which weren't super typical to No Game No Life. I mean, when they were playing certain games, they were actiony, but you had this pretense of constant danger when you were outside of your safe base. So like the tone of the movie is completely different from traditionally the TV show, but it was nice to see it in that angle. Like it didn't really. I think it tied in well to some prequel history to the series. So
Yeah. The only thing I have to say about the movie was just I was surprised how different it was from the series. A lot heavier, but it was good. That's all I want to say.
it
I
was
don't want to
definitely
give out too much. Go watch it when it comes out. Buy the Blu-rays, DVDs, but check out Fathom. They announced a lot of titles that are going to be coming out, especially this month because of Halloween. They got special airings of theaters and Howl's Moving Castle and stuff like that that are going to be airing
Yeah, I was about to say they're mostly
around.
doing a Ghibli run right now, but I don't know if that has anything to do with Halloween. Like I was wondering where you're going with that, but
Well, I thought Spirit Away on Halloween was
I
going
got you. Yeah,
to
but our biggest
that horror thing.
complaint as people who went to this Fathom event was when I watched Ordinal Scale. My theater at the beginning of a lot of the stuff they bring over, they play a voice actor interview, and for Ordinal Scale, it was of the Japanese cast, and that was really nice. Well, it was okay. In respect to what happened to No Game No Life Zero. No Game No Life Zero. It seems that you know Sentai, who is doing this film, who has the licensed rights for No Game No Life. It's not Aniplex. It's not Funimation. Um, they were handed the footage a while ago. They already have it dubbed, hence they can play it in theaters. They just did today. So eventually the Blu-ray is going to come out, and instead of playing the Japanese voice actor interview, it almost seems like they played a special feature prepared for the English Blu-ray and an interview with the English voice acting cast, which you didn't have to translate anything. It wasn't the Japanese cast, but I'm probably not going to watch it in English. An interesting thing is it showed us what the English cast sounds like, clips of the movie and the series with the English dub. So I got to experience what the English dub looked like because I never looked into it. And like it was interesting to see like people who portrayed the characters, how they talked about like what they tried to do with their voice. I don't think their talent is as great as Japan, but unfortunately, if you watch that special feature first, if it's a part of the Blu-ray, they do like to talk about what happens to the characters. They don't get super spoilery, but they're like, this character develops initially, they're like this, but then they become this, and they're saying this before you watch the film, and it's like, well, gee, thanks. That's great. So we kind of wish that I either wish that they did something more like ordinal scale, where I don't know if it was the conflict. I don't know what they were getting that footage for, but it just screams to me that that's a special feature that they have prepared, that they got for the English release, that they just, since they have it now, they just went ahead and played it for the movie.
Well, that'll be it for today. Check out, I think Fate Stay Night's doing a 3-movie release too. That's going to be coming soon.
Yeah, there's
They have
also
some theaters announced.
I didn't make a huge announcement of this because I didn't think it mattered. Before Fate Stay Night, which is going to hit mid-November to early December, depending on the showtimes of the theater, Funimation has a film coming out in literally about a week or two. It's a Tokyo Ghoul live action. So this isn't, technically an anime fan thing because, like, much like Gantz did a live action, and Rurouni Kenshin, and even Assassination Classroom, but I don't think that one had a theatrical run over here. The trailer, there's a trailer out for it, so you could watch the trailer if you're that much of a fan of Tokyo Ghoul. I was okay with Tokyo Ghoul, but I wasn't as much of a fan as it seemed to caught on in like the convention scape and whatnot. So if you're a diehard fan, wouldn't mind watching the live action. It is related to anime, though not anime. That's going to be in theaters really, really soon here, and it should be in quite a few theaters where you probably don't have to do more than an hour's trip away because it's, all over the dang place. It's not Aniplex alone doing this one. So, just that announcement too.
Okay. Well, I was just going to say, if it's anything like this new Death Note, don't spend your money. But it is from Japan, so maybe it might be better.
It is Japanese. It's not the Netflix Death Note.
So let's go ahead and John, right?
It's never good. It's
right.
never good. So
that's kind of my sentiment on the live actions too. They're not as great as because let's not get into this.
Yeah. So there's plenty of good shows on Netflix. Before we close, I'd still like to plug ID Zero that just dropped Friday. All episodes available in English. I've been hearing some things about the voice acting is not that good, but the story, and if you want, you can still watch it subtitled, and Japanese. So I would highly recommend it if you're a sci-fi fan. It was a great show that I really enjoyed from spring of this year. That's it.
Oh, didn't you also post something about like anime on Netflix?
Yeah.
Like there's a website.
There's animeonnetflix.com is a website recommending all kinds of anime that is currently and will be coming up on Netflix. So right now my recommendation goes to ID Zero, but Little Witch Academia, both seasons, the full TV series is also on there, and it's a fun ride. So
yeah, they also, I think they also list titles that they're pulling as well.
Yeah, that does happen. But
yeah, Glitter Force Hive from
Netflix
Sean.
Anime Originals.
Looks like Sean's a Glitter Force fan.
Yes.
Isn't that like some kind of Precure
Yeah, I
as
think
well?
it's one of them. I don't know which one. It's not the one I saw, but
Yeah, I don't know if anyone knows about Precure, but if you're a Precure fan, I think this is also one of those shows. Let's see. I guess that's it for everyone. Thank you for watching. Um, Olivia was also another person that was on our live chat. Thank you for watching. So sad we got you onto that Nora Cat show. Uh,
It
looks
was
like
popular, dang it. I don't know how, but it was. At least according to AnyList.
so. That's it for tonight. We might. I think we're going to skip next week because that's only 2 episodes out, maybe, and then we'll do the beginning of the fall season, maybe on the 22nd or 29th. We'll have a small discussion on Anime Talk to see what works for everyone.
okay.
And so if you want to join us, let us know. I think we might have one new person. Someone messaged me like at the beginning of last season that they wanted to join us for the fall season. So we might have a new person with us as well for that one. So get your watching on. Pull up your Funimation, Amazon, Anime Prime thingy, whatever. Um,
Anime or
Anime
Amazon
strike.
Plus, or yeah,
Strike.
Amazon Prime Plus Strike.
So watch all your shows you can. Join us for that to hang out if you want to discuss or share your thoughts on the show. I remind you, it's not just to discuss what's good. If you have something out there that's so bad that you just need to vent, let us know. We like those sometimes. They're pretty fun. Well, I mean, if it's a show I like, I don't like it. I guess that's it. Thank you for watching. Bye,